Welcome to the resumption of the Forsyth County Board of Commissioners challenges with the 21-22 $503 million budget. We've been working on that this morning since 9 o'clock, and we'll be continuing now until in the afternoon when the board decides it's time to go home. So we can come back tomorrow morning and be here at 9 o'clock in the morning again. We're going to begin this afternoon session with our county manager, Dudley Watts. Mr. Watts.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a good lunch. So we've gotten the adjustments made to the budget that we talked about before the break. We talked through the alternate service level request. I guess the question's really, so we have presented to you all the items that we had that were outstanding from the staff perspective. So at this point, it really is more of a question and answer kind of session. And kind of inner deliberations, So I guess I would ask board members if there's anything further we need to do. Do we need to dive through the full list of alternate service levels, or if you feel pretty comfortable about those? If you've got any questions about any ones that are specific, we either me or leadership or budget staff can kind of help through that, or if there's really any questions back on the continuation budget. The approach we took this year with that was to really go sort of to really identify and go into a lot of depth on the drivers of that, and so what was left was pretty marginal and nominal at that point. But anyway, if there are any other questions on the continuation budget, I don't want to leave that.
Well, you've given us a wide number of options. I've had a couple of commissioners say they would prefer to have further conversations with you before we get into official meetings on the alternate service requests and what we might do, suggesting that maybe we could put the alternate service numbers in a position that would allow them to study it a little more and talk with you a little more.
Sure.
I have two questions. One is that I found this in just going through the alternative service level request, that the air awareness program that was submitted by EAP, the one full-time coordinator for that, looks like it's somebody pays you for that. I mean, there's a reimbursable thing. It's like $77,000, but you get $73,000 reimbursed. Is there some reason you purposely did not include in your alternative service level request? Because I assume this would be a staff related issue.
Yeah, I believe that was there was federal funding that had gone away, and so but there's some indication that it's coming back, that it may come back, and so we wanted to put it out there as an alternate service level just to, I guess, see if there'd be interest. I believe that's what it was, to see if there'd be interest in bringing that back
sense
if the funding comes back.
Yeah, I did not. The idea was going to be that if it were approved, what we would do is we would consider that authorization to go ahead and apply for the grant. I did not recommend it, but really the option there would be, once the grant application is made available, and if the position gets funded, we would basically ask you to take action in a future meeting. But when we were going through the continuation budgets, we pulled that out. We can either add it to the list and then know we're okay going ahead and applying for it, or we can bring that back to you in a subsequent business meeting cycle. So either way, it's really okay.
Well, it seems like applying for it makes, I don't know how long it continues or what the
It was here forever. We had that grant for many years, and the air awareness person was, staff member, had been here a long time. It really supported efforts, particularly around mobile sources of air pollution. Anything you want to add to that? I mean, it actually predated you, but the position had been here for quite some time, and it just wasn't funded. Well, there's Minor. Come on, Minor. I didn't see you. I'm sorry. We're sitting here talking all the way around it.
Welcome, Minor.
Thank you. So that was a long-term position that was being funded with federal transportation money that was coming to the State Department of Transportation, and part of that was used to support a grant from the North Carolina Department of Transportation to the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality. And then that enabled the Department of Environmental Quality to execute a contract with us for each year for several years to fund the air awareness program and the position that carried out that program. So in the first 3 months of the pandemic, in early March, April, May of 2020, there was a $300 million shortfall in revenue for the State Department of Transportation that prevented us from executing another contract to carry the program beyond September of 2020 when it ended. But we are currently talking about securing a restoration of that funding between those two state agencies. And when that gets done, we will probably be talking to them about restoring the program. But, you know, what I've told them is, you know, I would like to see an assurance of at least 2 years of minimum amount of funding before we restore the program, because I wouldn't want to try to restore it for a short period of time and then have it dropped again. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, and so number one, I guess I'd follow up, do you think it was good when we had it?
Yes, it enabled us to have a really visible presence in the community, and that person or the people that filled that position were able to develop interactive content to share with different age groups of interested people. You know, they would go into the school system, they would meet with public, like community groups. We would have a presence in person at community events where we could engage the public and participate in events in different places in the community at different times of year. So the person in the position was really busy. They were constantly developing new content, updating everything. And, you know, we were fortunate that we had people in that position. The last two were really good at coming up with interactive ways to engage people in a learning activity. It wasn't just talking, it was, you know, active engagement that was delivering the message. You know, I was really pleased with what they accomplished. And yeah, I think it was worthwhile. You know, I think that a lot of what we do in the world in the area that I work in, you know, one significant or effective way to move the needle on some of the things that we're trying to accomplish is to increase awareness among the general public to influence the behavior of 380,000 people in Forsyth County. But that position, since it was a state-funded position, actually covered a 9-county region. Most of the work was here, but they also went into surrounding counties with some of the activities too, but not as often.
That's good. Well, yeah, I would encourage us to try to seek that. I think your 2-year idea is a good one, instead of getting started and it ceases and trying to make another decision what to do.
Right.
Additional questions for Minor? Thank you.
I had one other question. Okay. The second question was, I looked through the color coding chart during lunch, and I guess my question on that is where do we end up on whether they are eligible or not? What additional work has to be done to decide to where it's eligible? I mean, right now we've got, in fact, kind of a matter. I mean, that's a pretty big range of items, and I'm just kind of curious about how what do we think that the result is, and if let's just say we pick some of these. I mean, obviously they're not picked, and there's no reason to fool with it. But if there were some of these, if they were art funding, that would be attractive. How are we going to decide whether they really are eligible or not?
I think that that would be the primary work that's done when we go into that sort of art process that we're talking about going in through July in that time period. And so, I mean, I don't think we're sort of got a catch-22 here. You got some lots of folks asking for money. They've actually identified ARP as the source in a lot of the, those situations. Obviously, if you don't fund them now, then the only opportunity they're gonna have is through that ARP process until next budget year. And so, but I think that determination of eligibility would really be, I don't think we're gonna be in a position to make a real determination of eligibility in the process we're in right now. We've done something that's really superficial. I know it's not perfect. We've sort of taken a shot at it. And we did that for the purposes of you being able to go back and look at the stuff that's not ARP funding to see if there's anything there we really need to reach and grab hold of. If there's something that maybe is blue, that where only one of our analysts said that maybe, and you know you really want to fund it, then we might want to talk about that through this process now. But really everything else, I think you can probably push off to the ARP process, and then we'll work hard on the eligibility. By that time, I hope we have better guidance from the Treasury, because right now we're operating under the preliminary, whatever the rule, interim final rule, whatever that means exactly. But
The catch-22 part for now is that for some of these, if there was no ARP, I would have been in favor of some of these.
okay,
But if I think it's eligible for ARP, I'd probably be happy to wait. To simply, to wait. But then if we determine that it's not eligible, it's sort of past our time, if you will. And that's what I'm getting at.
yeah, that is all true. And so I just my suggestion for that would be, if it's not highlighted or blue, I would really pay attention to it and make sure there's nothing there that you wouldn't want to consider in this setting. If there's one there that you really, really are interested in, and it's, and you really wouldn't want it to miss the opportunity, maybe pull that one in, even if it's yellow or green. But this was really an effort to try to say, okay, here's what we feel comfortable with. We can push off to that other process. When we do that, we'll be in communication with all of those folks and say, you weren't funded during our annual operating budget process, but we intend to go through this other process as we get a little more information, and we can work with other jurisdictions a little bit more. So.
Well, I'll belabor this one more comment, one more thing. What if we put something in and said, this is really important, we'll put it in there, and now in our alternative service level request, but then when we get into this ARP process, we kind of reach a determination that same thing could be eligible, then we could obviously supplant it, so to speak. I mean, it's not supplanting because we never did it. I mean, it's just, we've kind of got it earmarked, and now when we do this in, say, September, we said, well, yeah, it really is eligible, and so then we could take it off the ASL and put it in the ARP. I love all these names, ABC, CDE.
KDP 352.
Well, I'll give you an example. We funded Crosby Scholars last year with $200,000 towards their projects, their stuff. And I would include, they have a second request. I would include that request again, but it got a yellow on ARP because it is benefiting kids that were disadvantaged. In fact, a lot of their focus is on, minority populations, at-risk populations, to try to get them to be eligible to go for higher education, which is an important, and they took a shot here this past year. So I can see a nexus between that and what ARP's all about. But if we kind of decided that was not, that's one that I would put in now if I didn't think it was going to be around. That's an example.
Dudley, here's a thing I think we've got to decide one way or the other. We are here today. We will be back in here at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, and we're going to vote on the $503 million budget Thursday, day after tomorrow. And we have in front of us the 2022 Forsyth County alternate service requests for the year. And we've had, at least where I'm concerned, I had at least one commissioner say they'd like to see what is in this notebook we've had in front of us all day and haven't gone through it page by page. So the question I have is, if we don't go through this, when are we going to do it? Has to be before Thursday.
That's your homework.
Well, that's, yeah, and the other part of that is we've got to have some numbers to back it up, and we've got the staff in front of us right now, and if we're at home, we won't have it. So let's make a decision on that today. Either we are or we aren't, but we've got this in front of us, and has had a lot of work done on it, had a lot of numbers in here. And it's like Commissioner Kaplan said, the schools are waiting to find out where they're going to go with it. So go ahead, Ted.
The items that are colored on this, green and yellow.
Yep.
They're the top and next to the top.
Yep.
They can all be funded with ARP money, is that correct? The red.
Well, maybe.
The green and the yellow?
Those are, what I would say is those are the requests that at least, so if it was green, it was at least 3 of us said that seems like it would be ARP eligible. If it was yellow, it was 2 people in our staff. So that's really what that is. It's not,
I know the federal government has come down and checked all of these programs, but your assumption is that green and yellow are eligible for that money.
that would be my assumption.
And I'd go a little bit further. I mean, I think we can, that's based on the information they provided. I think the eligibility is going to be determined based on how you say it fits into the program to some extent. And so, I hate to say this, but I think you can make a lot, except for where something clearly is not eligible. I think it's going to be more open than.
So what I'm trying to figure out, Dudley, is if green and yellow meet the standard from what we've determined that to be, they could be pulled out of this list and done next month.
Absolutely.
And so all we really need to look at is the blue and the white that are marginal.
That's
Well,
right.
the white's more marginal, I guess, than the blue.
I think that's,
If you have particular special appropriations that you're interested in, I'd be happy to take a look at them. I've not gone through all of these. I have just looked at the Crosby Scholars because Commissioner Martin referenced that. That, to me, is pretty clearly eligible because it focuses on Title I schools, which would mostly be in the QCT, the Qualified Census Tract. So I feel good about that one. I can't vouch for all of them, but I'm sure a lot of them are eligible, as the manager indicated. But if there are particular ones that you want to flag, we can look at them. And
Well, what I'm trying to figure out is that they will be funded at a separate budget process sometime next month, maybe, or next after this is done. Could be
Or September.
or September. Could be anytime. So,
if that's your decision, you may decide you don't want some of these programs.
well, I got that, but that's a decision to be made at that time. But there's certainly, they're all eligible now, but you basically now you're talking about 6 million, right? 6 million that's available, or 1 million. I don't know what.
There's 6 million available, and obviously there's lots of things that could be done with that 6 million, which could include reducing the tax rate, for example.
Right.
The 6 million
all
is
kinds
not.
of- all kind of things.
As long as this is moved till the next budget process, which would be
Yes.
anytime in the next few months.
This is not the 6 million.
This is, yes.
I got that.
Yes. Well, we have 6 million for alternative service level requests, which does not include the
6.7.
the 50-something, 56 million of ARP money that we have left after the 18 million got moved out.
Right.
Right. So I'm not talking about, we're talking about overlaps between ASL request and potential ARP request later. And if we came up with, and Dudley made a good point, I mean, just because it's eligible doesn't mean it may fit into what if the greatest thing on earth sort of bubbles up and everybody says we're gonna go together and put all of our art money to get this thing done, then a lot of these wouldn't be done if we thought there was some just spectacular thing we could invest our money in. Well, I can't either, but
I guess what I'm trying to say is this, if we could pull out of this list that can be funded later, in a month or so, it would open up more opportunities for these marginal.
yes, I hear you. And I'm trying to probe that as exactly the questions I'm asking. I'm saying if it got delayed and then it did not get included into ARP, then when something may have been done, I'll put may have been done now, then it's sort of, unless we'd be willing to reconvene if we reserve some, I mean, holy cow, there's 100 ways you could do it. You could reserve money for backup on that if we wanted to.
Yeah, that's
Gentlemen,
probably,
I got a couple of concerns,
Right
if
ahead,
you don't
Mr.
mind, sir.
Fleming.
We're operating up under the guidelines of a tentative treasurer's report.
Yep.
I'm a little concerned that we're sort of getting ahead of ourselves a little bit. If we don't have specific instructions from the Treasury Department on how we can use these funds. I appreciate the 3-vote, 2-vote from our distinguished staff, but I would really like to see what they say in that final report from the Treasury Department on what's really eligible. And I was trying to overlay this list of things in green and blue on the qualified census tract, and I could only do it with a few of these programs that I'm very familiar with. I'd like to see these that we say qualified and post on a map like that, so I can see indeed where they fit into the community. And I don't see any rush to do this today. I thought we was going to get a consultant that would be responsible for making sure they were accountable, and we take our time with some allocation until July or 1st of August. So why are we trying to decide this today at this hour?
Just because they're also they're listed in our alternative service level requests.
And the option for those services would be what source of funds besides ARP?
Say that again.
What's the alternative source of funds for this group of agencies if we don't use ARP funding? We got another source of funds for them?
Yes.
The 6.8?
It's this whole notebook full of stuff.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Or reduce the tax base about that. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
See, that was my second set of questions here. I finished, the first set is okay, everybody's good with what I'm trying to say? Let's get something from the Treasury Department first before we make some final decisions. The second concern was this 6.7 million, how much would that reduce the tax rate overall in Forsyth County? Ballpark? 1.5.
1.6.
1.6.
4 something. 4.2 a penny, is that right?
Okay.
Yeah, Ms. President is correct. It's around 1.6 cents.
I know commissioner on my left would be right instead of my commissioner on my right here. Okay. Trying to get a feel for the numbers here. So if we take that and reduce the tax basis, all these would then have to be funded with ARP funds, the ones we select, basically, that's what it boils down to.
Yes, sir.
Just want some clarity here. All right. I'm not ready to vote on these ARPS allocations just yet.
I think you're right. I think there are a lot of questions that haven't been answered. The question now is, do you want to answer the questions now, or you want to wait till tomorrow, or just, what's your advice, Dudley?
You know, we kind of stand ready to do whatever you need us to do. I'm not hearing a lot of questions, but more process questions than I think in-depth questions about the materials and the choices you have to make. So,
yeah.
I mean, we may,
Well, we may not vote on it Thursday, you know, if all these questions aren't answered by then. Because you can't prepare the budget unless you've got answers to the questions we're raising. So,
Mr. Chair,
yes, ma'am, go ahead.
could I offer a Wisson-Hunt-Linville plan, please?
Oh, my goodness, this sounds exciting.
Well, it keeps life simple.
It's simple.
It's very simple. When we we restored the continuation budget in December. That budget has a 10.7% increase in our continuation budget. The citizens of Forsyth County have passed bond referendums since I can remember, and they usually pass them overwhelmingly. So they've been very good to this county. We have an opportunity here to show our respect to them and offer them a little bit of a repayment. We could reduce further the tax rate by 1.6 cents. And I think that's a great way of showing our appreciation for them being so generous to us, which they have been generous to us through the years. And so Richard and I have gotten together. We recommend the manager's recommendation budget and his recommended continuation budget. This page is very simple. We recommend that plus a 1.6 further decrease in the tax rate.
So that would make the total request, decrease 3 cents rather than 1.6, is that right?
It would, the 1.6 would come off of the part that's added for debt leveling, which, as I recall, is 2.2123.
Kyle, can you give them what that rate would be? We'll need to do a little fine tuning before we finalize the ordinance, but that rate would be?
It would go to 67.18, 67.18.
And revenue neutral is?
67.03.
Okay, so we'd be up 0.15 from revenue neutral if you did that.
Then the next question would be, do all programs in the budget we're operating with right now suffer, or do they remain the same, or do they get additional funding? Total? In the budget.
So you get raises and move up in the scale of comparison to 90 to 95, right, on the salaries? 95.
That's correct. The recommended budget has the comp and class adjustments, and it also has a performance increase with a range of 1% to 4%.
Well, that sounds reasonable to me. How about you?
And you can save all the rest of it for the treasurers.
Exactly, and some of those folks got CARES Act money. Some of them will get
Oh,
ARP.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like I say, it's simple,
Winston had limbo plan of action.
yes.
All right. Tanya McDaniel, what's your opinion?
Thank you, Chairman, for asking. It's going to be a no for me. I think I just need overnight to just have some discussions with my other commissioner colleagues relative to the other ARP and the other alternative service level
Well, there's
requests.
nothing in the world that says we have to adopt anything today. If you want, are you suggesting we talk about it tomorrow and give it a little more time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, do anybody object to Commissioner McDaniel's comments? Why don't we do this, Dudley, because we've got some conflicting opinions, and it's not necessarily bad, but let's just not do anything with it. Come in at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning with a goal of going through everything we've got to go through, listening, taking into consideration what Gloria Wisenhunt has had to say and seeing what we can come up with.
And Richard.
Well, Richard, of course, but Richard's the dean, so you never question Richard. Right, Richard?
Repeat that or say that.
That's okay. You don't need to
Just
hear.
say you're the dean.
Yeah, you're the dean. You don't need to hear any more. Is that satisfactory? We can go ahead and adjourn if you want to and come back tomorrow at 9, ready to rock and roll.
And I would just add that Kyle's available, I'm available, Chantel, Damon, and the budget staff. So you reach out to us as necessary, and we can help answer any questions.
Okey-doke.
I need you.
In that case, Mr. Kaplan has moved that we adjourn. I'll second the motion. We're adjourned.
9 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock tomorrow.